Hi, my name is Randy Billings. I'm a student at NDSU, and today I'll be teaching you how to make a tie blanket. First, why making a tie blanket? Well, they can be used for many different occasions. You can make them for many different people or animals. I like to make personalized items, so I think making a tie blanket is the perfect idea to do. You can make them for babies, you can make them for cats or dogs or any other pet you do have. You can make them for toddlers, little sisters, little brothers, significant others, or even your own self. First, what you need to do is gather some certain materials. You need to go to either Joann Fabrics, Hancock Fabrics, or even Hobby Lobby. Just go to some fabric store that sells fleece, such as this, and buy whichever 2 items of fleece that you want. Today I'll be making a fleece blanket for one of my friends, so this stuff is boy material. He likes military items, so I'm making him a camouflage blanket on one side and just a solid brown color fleece on the other. You can do 2 solid colors or even 2 different materials. It's your call. Just make sure they are the same types of fleece. Alright, once you've gathered your fleece, now you need to go gather the rest of your materials. So first you'll need to gather a pair of scissors. I have 2 different types of scissors, a smaller pair and a kitchen pair. Whatever one you use, just make sure they are strong enough to cut through a piece of fleece. Next, you'll need a marker. I'm using a black washable marker, a Sharpie spine of any color. Just make sure it is dark enough to show up on your piece of fleece. Lastly, you'll need either a ruler or a note card. I like to use note cards because this is how long I want every single tie to be, as opposed to having a ruler and trying to remember which little millimeter I mark each tie off to. Alright, once you're ready to make your blanket, first you need to do is lay out your blanket. I put the solid color on the bottom and put the design material on top. That way I know that the material that I'm using, if it does have words or anything on it, it is right side up, as opposed to the solid color there. You can kind of tell which side is the right side up, but then again, there isn't really a big difference. Before you get to starting and drawing out your line, what you need to do is cut off this factory edge, which usually on like the design material, it'll be a white straight edge, and on the brown or solid color material for me, it's kind of like an uneven edge. You can't really tell in a video, you just kind of have to look at it from your eyes. It's usually like a sewn piece on the end, usually about an inch thick, but some pieces of fleece already have that cut off. And once you have your whole entire blanket smoothed out, I like to cut the fleece off next to the other piece so I can see if they're lined up or not. So what you need to do is cut off the entire piece of white edge. Some people ask, do you want to leave some on? The end of your fleece that you cut is going to be the edge of your tie. So if you want that to show on your tie, then you can cut it off. Otherwise, I wouldn't cut it off at all. So what you do is you just begin cutting. Sometimes the fleece is a little tricky, so pulling it tight helps to get it started. Once you cut all the factory edge off, you can throw that away. You're not going to use that anymore unless you want to use it for scrap material. It's your call, whatever you like. I'm just finishing up my last little end that I need to cut off on my fleece. I hope you were able to find the factory edges on yours. I did notice on my camouflage piece though that there was a camouflage color at factory edge, and it was just sewn in kind of curly. I'm sure you noticed that if you just looked at all the edges on your blanket. Usually it's on the longer 2 edges of your fleece blanket, which is kind of a pain because those are the longer edges you have to cut. Again, don't worry about your factory or your new line being as perfect as possible. Just make sure that it does line up with the 2 fleeces do line up with each other. So these are my scrap pieces that I have. I just like to put all the scrap pieces in one pile and clean up at the end. Once you're all ready and your factory edges are done, what you can do now is start laying out your blanket as how you do want it to be, because now we are going to begin tying. Once you're ready to start drawing some lines, just take your flat edge or your ruler, or in my case a note card, just line it up to the bottom of the piece of fleece and just draw a line at the very, very top. For me, I like to just go in little increments, not necessarily one after another. That way when I can come back after I've drawn all the lines and just kind of connect the two. For the note card case, I like this because then I can just throw this away and I don't worry about getting my note card all messy from marker or trying to be too clean with a nice ruler that I have. And I have a lot of note cards laying around, so why not use them for different purposes? Also, make sure you do draw all the way around the entire blanket. So when you get to corners, like I've already drawn this corner, make sure you connect that. For me, I just like to draw every single corner all the way around, and I'll have extra lines going on both sides. That's okay. You're going to cut up into this black line anyways, so don't worry about having the black line show. It's not going to show in your blanket. And besides, if you wash it, it'll come out after a few times. Alright, I hope you got all of your lines drawn, and it is dark enough, just like this line right here. You can see it all the way around. You need to be able to see your line. So if it's not dark now, go back and make sure it is dark, because we are going to begin tying it now. So I like to just start at one corner. So I'm going to start at this corner and kind of just work my way either clockwise or counterclockwise. Today I'm feeling going to counterclockwise, so that's what's going to happen. So first, you see how you have the line of the corner meeting each other? I'm going to start on this way and work my way this way. So what's going to happen is I'm going to draw my first line straight up into these two perpendicular lines. So try to drop that down. So what's going to happen is make sure your fabric lays nice and flat, because now it is very important that your fabric does stick together. So, like I said, I'm just going to cut straight up into it, and as you can probably tell, this whole square piece, the other side that meets, is going to get cut off. Just wait till you get to that area, otherwise you could have some leftover pieces and you don't know what to do with them. Now for each little strip, I like to cut them into 1-inch sections. So I just like to eyeball it. You can either draw each 1 inch out. Personally, I think that takes a lot of additional time, and I'm a college student, so I don't like to waste time. Also, these blankets are personalized, so why not just make the different ties as best as you can to 1 inch. It's yours. You can do whatever you want. Just be sure that you are drawing straight up into the line. You're not going past it. You're not going too short of it. You drew that line for a reason, so use it. Alright, once all of your edges are cut and your blanket is still laid nice and flat, it's going to be ready to tie. Make sure you did cut off all the corners, because you are not going to be tying those. So starting at the same corner that I began to cut, you want to take the top piece and the bottom piece separately. I like to use my feet to kind of like hold the other edges down so I make it tight. And you're going to cross the top piece and the bottom piece and just tie regular single knot. The bottom piece is going to be on top at this point, and you're going to do it one more time so that the top piece is back on top. I like to just leave them kind of one on top of each other rather than pulling them all down. That way I know I don't miss any of them. So continuing on, just keep going around the entire blanket. Make sure you do tie them tight, but not too tight where the blanket kind of shrinks and squinches together like you can see here. But if that does happen, just kind of pull it apart and that should be good to go. Alright, so I'm just finishing up my last few ties. Some things to note is, as you probably can tell, that the edges are a little scrunched up. That'll help, that'll go down as you use the blanket more and more. Otherwise, like I showed you at the beginning of tying the blanket, you can just pull that out with your hand. So, once the blanket's completely finished, just like this is, you can just pull on the edges a little bit and kind of make sure the whole entire blanket isn't falling apart, if you will. Also, one thing my grandma always had us do was take the center of the blanket, so like dead center or whatever, and then she would sew the two pieces together with like some of the scrap material. I don't care to do that because I don't really know how to sew, and that's a different video to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something, and now you make a lot of tie blankets for your friends and family. Thank you.